Hey guys, welcome to another video. This video we're going to talk about polyvagal theory, which is basically an understanding of how our nervous system interacts with the world and understanding our nervous system is going to help us understand why we respond to certain things, why we tend to attract the same things into our lives, why we are like we are in certain situations. And I really think that it helps you have more compassion for yourself when you do face those difficult situations, because it's like, oh well, my nervous system is attracting this is why my nervous system feels like this is why I am behaving this way in this situation. So polyvagal theory is is a theory that was created by a guy called Stephen Porges in 1994. So if you want to learn more about this, I really recommend you going on the YouTube or a podcast or whatever and Google it. And just if you want to, like, if you find this interesting, because there's so much information here, and this video is really just going to be a summary of everything that I've learned, but obviously there's always going to be so much more to learn. So if you want to really dive deep into it, do definitely go and have a little look. But Stephen says that the way he describes it is the goal of therapeutic interventions, informed by polyvagal theory, my God, my words, is to help individuals expand the window of tolerance. They promote self-awareness and self-regulation techniques that can return the autonomic nervous system to a regulated state. So understanding how your nervous system works so that we can get back to regulation, which is where we want to be the majority of the time. So there are three main principles of polyvagal theory. So we have the ventral vagal state, which is a social engagement, safety, kind of rest and digest state where we feel safe, we can play, we can have fun, we can interact with people. We're not doing any like super impulsive decisions, we're not reacting, we're not being very like stressed, anxious, fighting, running. Like, we are just feeling good basically, or we're resting and digesting. So there's like a few different stages of this part, but I'm going to go through that a bit more later. We also had a sympathetic state, which is really the doing state. Like, the sympathetic is the doing. This is where we run, this is where we fight, and this is where our nervous system really feels like we can still do something about the situation. Like, we can still solve it by either fighting or running. And then we also have the state where most people don't know about, which is called the dorsal vagal state. And this is the state where we feel like overwhelmed, or we feel like we can't do anything, or we get depressed, we feel numb. And this is super common when we have experienced a lot of trauma. And like we have spoken about before, trauma isn't just about the big T's. Like, trauma can also be that you didn't feel loved by your caregivers, or that no one ever, or that your physical needs weren't met. So trauma is not a matter of like, if you have trauma, it's what is your trauma. So like the freeze fawn state, your nervous system controls literally everything. How you feel, your thoughts, the sensations, your perception of the world, like how you experience things, everything is controlled by your nervous system. Like, depending on where you are, what state you're in, you are going to have a completely different outlook of what is happening to you. So what our nervous system does is basically, it's just constantly working. Like, this is such an amazing part of us, because it's constantly working to see, is that person safe or not safe? Is that person safe or not safe? Is this situation safe or not safe? Is this situation safe or not safe? And that's what it's doing non-stop, 24/7, just trying to keep you safe. So the regulated state is called the ventral vagal complex, and it's really focused on the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a nerve located around our heart, our head, and our eyes, and it really goes through the whole body. Vagus means wonder. This is what basically is like the brake of the nervous system. So it's the main part of the parasympathetic, and it really breaks when we are too heightened, and it allows us to come back to a more regulated state. This is where we can rest, digest, and relax. And yeah, like I said, it's like the brake of the sympathetic nervous system, or the nervous system, and the sympathetic is more like the accelerator, like the push, like that getting you to go. So this is what we need in order to be able to restore balance after having that stressful event. So in this state, we don't just have that we're going to sleep. We're also going to have that playful state where we're on a date, we're feeling great, we're feeling flirting, having fun. or like we're with our friends, or maybe like have a good time, you're playful. But then that playful, when that gets too heightened, it goes into that sympathetic state where we're a bit more like doing. We also have that stillness. So, for example, maybe you go to the beach and you're watching the waves and you're just feeling really calm and relaxed, and you don't want anyone to interrupt you and to even be around anyone. That's that stillness place of where you're just like, I'm just here right now and nothing can bother me. So in our sympathetic, our doing state, this is where, like I said before, this is where our body still thinks that it can do something about the danger. It thinks that we can fight it off, we can fight that animal, or fight that person, or fight, like do more stuff to feel better, or work more, or whatever it is. Like, it's the doing state. Or it thinks that it can run, so we can run away from what we're feeling, we can run away from the pain, we can run away from the dangerous person. And this, so like I said, this is where our body still thinks that it can do something about the situation that we're in at the time. And this really feels like we worry about things, we're scared about things, we feel anxious, we feel concerned, we might have intense anger, frustration. So, pre-planning ahead, like thinking about the future, thinking, how can I solve this problem, fighting off that person, arguing with someone online. And it's very, very easy to get stuck in this state, because in this world we are very heightened, like we are very doing, there's constantly stuff to do, right? It's very hard to be in a regulated state, because there's literally always something to do. You can always check your phone, you can always get frustrated at something, someone's always going to be doing more than you, someone's always going to be pissing you off if you're looking for it, someone's always going to be hurting your feelings if you're looking for it. Like, it's very hard to shut off, because we're so constantly surrounded by so many external stressors. This is what creates dysregulation, because when we are dysregulated, our prefrontal cortex, so the part of the brain that's responsible for making decisions, for learning new things, for paying attention and being here, is turned off. Because I think we said this in another module, when we are in a sympathetic state, where are we breathing? Well, we're going to breathe up here in our chest. So it's going to be very much like what this means is that our prefrontal cortex is not getting enough oxygen. So it turns off, because your brain is like, okay, we have to run or fight from something. So we're not going to waste energy and oxygen on the prefrontal cortex, because why would we learn a new language? Why would we sit here and try and focus on what you're saying? Why would we try and remember things? Like, all we need to focus on right now is to run or to fight. Like, if you're running from a bear, you don't have time to learn a new language. You're just focused on the going. And then we have the dorsal vagal complex, which is a state that not many people talk about, but it's so important, because it's something that is so common. I think most of us have experienced a part of like a time where we felt completely numb. This is what helps us leave the body when we can't get away from an experience. So, for example, like people who have been victims of rape, for example, like they often feel a lot of guilt, because they're like, oh, I didn't do anything. But you couldn't, like your body literally shut off so that you wouldn't have to feel as much pain. That's why this state is developed, so that it can when we are in those super dangerous and scary situations, we can almost leave the body and not feel anything. This is what happens, when the lion is chasing the zebra and then gets the zebra kind of leaves the body so that it doesn't have to feel how painful that feels. It's when we shut down, when we feel depressed, when we feel numb and just like can't feel anything. I can't feel happiness, can't feel sadness, when we're just like that. And this stems from feeling neglected in childhood, feeling hurt. It could stem from microaggression, so never like getting those like sneaky comments about, oh, you're not beautiful, you're ugly, or you're shit. It can come from abuse or not feeling seen or loved as a child. So if you never really felt like your parents cared about you, or that they didn't pay attention to you, like they didn't give you the physical touch that you needed, or that you didn't give you the love and care and attention that you needed, this can develop. So what I want you to really remember is that even though you are an adult, your nervous system still holds on to what it was taught growing up. So when your partner is yelling at you, that you don't see your partner, you see your mom or your dad or another adult yelling at you. So you're gonna react the same way as you did back then, because that's what your nervous system has learned to do. So if you reacted to fights growing up, if your way of reacting to that was to completely just leave the body and just be like, just stand there and take it and not feel anything, that's most likely what you do now as an adult as well. The freeze part is also a part of this state, but it's not the fawn, obviously. The freeze is equal parts of sympathetic and dorsal, so the fight or flight and also this one. And it's when we get to that point of like feeling super overwhelmed. It's like, I have to do it, but I can't. And you have like a gazillion different tabs on open, but instead of starting work, you go and fold your laundry, or you call a friend, or you just lay on your bed and you're like, I know I have so many things to do, but I just can't physically get myself to do it. It's like you're in like freeze. It's like when you're driving your car and all of a sudden a deer runs out on the road and it just stands there like completely paralyzed. It can't run away. That's what this state is. And this is when we procrastinate. This is where we get completely overwhelmed and we can't even, like, well, how do I get myself out of here? This is the freeze state. So if you want to learn how to regulate from all of these states, make sure you go and watch that video that I have created of how to regulate yourself in all of these different states. Language lives in your brain. The nervous system lives in your body. So this is why you can't just tell yourself, calm down, or stop being anxious, stop being angry, because you're talking, that's basically like me talking Mandarin to a Swedish person. Like, you wouldn't understand a thing. So every time, what we need to do to learn to teach our nervous system that we are safe and that we are actually in control right now, nothing bad's going to happen, that it's okay, is that every time, like, we need to keep repeating this process. Every time we regulate our nervous system from that dysregulated state and we are able to come back to regulation, our nervous system stores this in the database as, okay, that worked. Okay, that means that we didn't have to react to that person on Instagram. We didn't have to text that guy. We didn't have to eat that food. We didn't have to run, or whatever it is that you're doing, like your self-sabotaging behavior. Every time you're able to not act on it, you are teaching your nervous system that this is not what we need to do anymore. We do not need to go into the heightened state of reacting, of fighting, of fleeing, of freezing, or whatever you're doing. We can actually come back to the body, regulate ourselves, and feel safe. And once you have enough of these experiences, repetitions, that you are safe, your threat detectors will basically say, okay, good, awesome. We're actually safe right now, and we do not have to react. We do not have to activate that, like Sarah Baldwin calls it, the special ops team. We don't have to activate that to protect ourselves, because we are actually safe. So where people go wrong is that we what have I written here? We stop that bad behavior. So for example, we might stop binge eating, or we might stop like going on dating apps. We delete the dating apps, so we remove the food that we binge on. But because we haven't healed the actual wound and learned to regulate the nervous system, we stay dysregulated. So we find something else to keep us in that heightened state. We find another obsession. We find another thing that gives us that high, that keeps us stuck in that sympathetic doing stage, because the nervous system still thinks that you are under threat. It still thinks that you need to be in that state to stay safe. It doesn't feel safe just being. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about this, please just shoot them in the group, because I know this is a bit more complicated module. And I hope that you really liked this video. Nervous system, honestly, like I said, it regulates everything. So when I say that surfing the urge to binge, that is you teaching your nervous system, we do not have to act on this urge to binge. We can actually just be still and not act on it. And every time you do that, you are teaching your nervous system a new story.